Hello, my name is Tim Walterbach with IBB Talks. We're continuing in our series of the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths that we've covered, things that your company does well, qualities that separate you, internal resources, tangible assets. Weaknesses, the areas that we lack in, the competitors are doing a better job, limited resources, just unclear direction. And opportunities, underserved markets that we provide an opportunity for us, where there's fewer competitors, or an emerging need. We discussed a few examples there. But to finish this series out, we're going to be talking about threats to your business. Things that are changing in the marketplace, new technologies, publicity, regulations, new regulations, things that can make your business obsolete overnight, or over a longer period of time. I think about what used to be the world's largest retailer, Sears. Sears brand in America is well known as any other brand. Dating back clear into the 1800s, when I was growing up, they were the dominant force in the retail marketplace. You bought tools, you bought them from Sears. If you bought appliances, you bought them from Sears. They were just superior. The quality was superior. You could find everything you needed under one roof, from mowers, tools, clothes, washing machines. They were it. And before that, they were cutting edge, and they had a catalog, a big thick catalog that went out to everybody. But they didn't understand the threats that they came. They were not nimble enough to make changes to a changing marketplace. People began to specialize in these areas, tools, for example, or electronics. You have stores completely dedicated to those things now that maybe weren't back then. They let their stores get old. They let their systems get old, and weren't flexible enough, did not do enough SWOT analysis, apparently, that they could identify the threats that were causing them to slowly decrease their market share over many years. And now they're either bankrupt or soon to be bankrupt. But most of the Sears stores have been closed out. So, what are the things that will threaten our business? Emerging competitors. If you're making a good profit on something, that will not reside in a vacuum. That's going to get filled up very quickly. Word gets out that you're selling. They see the trucks coming in and the product flying off the shelf. It won't take long for somebody to say, here's an opportunity, and come in and take your place. So the threat needs to be analyzed to minimize the threat. How are we going to handle our customers cutting into our market share? Well, we might have more resources, more buying power, so we can keep our product low. It makes it hard for the new guy to get in because he can't buy at the level that we're buying in. Just by example. Other ways that you might minimize competitors is the quality that you provide. the service that you provide. But that has always got to be analyzed moment by moment. And a true entrepreneur is just it's going to have a sixth sense about that. They're always going to be looking around at what the competitor's doing and what the threat is. There's an interesting story about Sam Walton, and it's Walmart that pretty much put Sears out of business. And they had a parade for him, and in the parade they'd always have the same float. It's got his car or truck that was wrecked because he was looking into the parking lot counting cars, not paying attention to the guy who stopped in front of him and wrecked. But they kept that truck because just to remind them of this principle. You got to understand your threat, even if it costs you something. You got to, and somebody that's in business has to be aggressive enough to know there's somebody who's always out there ready to take your place in the marketplace. And then there's other things a little outside of your control that you just need to be aware of, is like changing regulations. We were in this, I mentioned this earlier, we were in this oil products manufacturer, and they had to keep up with all the EPA regulations. If they weren't careful, they could make some mistakes that would end up costing them a lot of money. They had a threat that could only be resolved by stricter controls and superior employee training. They gave one example of somebody not following protocol, and they mixed 2 truckloads of chemicals together that weren't supposed to mix together, and the whole batch, $200,000 worth, was ruined. And they didn't blame the employee as much as we need stricter controls. We need to control or provide better training. That was a hard lesson that many of us couldn't afford to handle. So we have got to be on the lookout for mistakes that can be made that we can handle through better training of our employees. And maybe it means paying a little bit extra for an attorney or some other professional that can keep you up with all the changing regulations, if that's that's your industry. That's not true for most of us on the levels that we're working on, but they certainly can. And then there's other things outside of our control. You can get some bad publicity, either media coverage or just word on the street. It just takes one unhappy customer for you to lose a dozen customers, potential customers. Because you know how it goes. If people are happy, they might tell somebody if it's convenient. But if they're unhappy, they will tell everybody about their bad experience with your product or service. And that's why customer surveys are so important. Asking people how they felt about your service. The internet has opened up Yelp and all these other ways to rate services, whether hotels or restaurants or different services. And it's a new day in customer service. And if that is not prevalent where you're from, yet, the emphasis is on the word yet, because it's coming. And we have to be more attuned to the threat of dissatisfied customers than we probably ever have in the history of doing business. Okay, hope this has been profitable to you. I enjoyed my time with you, and thank you for joining me.